Hello everyone and welcome back. This is just a expansion of the last video I did, which is talking about how communities can create layouts for games. The last video focused on terrain layouts and how to get those into a game, but this one is going to talk about objective layouts. One complaint several of the beta testers that have had a problem with is the number of options that a user can select for their objectives. They were kind of limited to these 3 default objective layouts that Wargame Simulator provided, and they simply were problematic in many cases. Some people had problems with the size of the table they were playing on, while others just wanted more variety in the objective layouts. And for that reason, I created a community layout system where users can generate their own custom layouts of either objectives, terrain, or deployment zones. And other units can basically search those and find ones that they like and subscribe to them, so they are then active in their drop-down menus. And the last video focused on terrain and how to build terrain, and this one is going to focus on objectives. So in order to build your own custom objective layout, or copy any of the many layouts that exist already in map packs that different groups release, you would go to your community games section and click on community layouts. From there, if I want to make an objective layout, I'd hit create an objective layout. I want to name an objective layout that is basic squares. And that's because I'm going to create a series of objectives on kind of this map overlay right here, and kind of show how you'd get those into a game, and kind of features and attributes of the objective that we can of the objective. So first I'm going to get rid of my face. I just noticed that it's covering a large portion of the screen, and sometimes this little map on the right side gets hidden behind there. So I'm just going to hide that. And now objectives. Objectives in 40K or in many other games are simply a layer of the map that requires that has a special meaning. In Warhammer 40K, it's related to the primary victory condition, and controlling objectives, which is done by getting units and miniatures near that objective, helps gain victory points throughout the game. One attribute of most of Warhammer 40K objectives, I'll create one right now, is that they have a location on the map and they have a control zone. This control zone is a circle with a 3-inch radius. And if you get units within that distance of the objective, you can control it. Now, I wanted to create a system where you could easily build objectives out. For example, now I can add another one at, let's say, 24, 22, and we'll have another objective out here. Let's just create a little row of objectives. We could do that by adding another objective that's at 36, 22, and it'll appear over here. And there we have a series of 3 objectives. Now for Wargame Simulator to work, you do have to have objective 1 and objective 2. So you're always going to have a minimum of 2 objectives. But that doesn't mean you can't do weird objective layouts like 3 in the middle, and then let's do one at let's go 55, 40. And we have an objective way up in the corner. And maybe that's the objective layout you want for maybe a custom game or scenario where there's maybe 3 caches in the middle, add some value to hold in the middle, and then maybe one really important one up in one corner. And maybe you can create a deployment zone. Those players deploy here and here, and they kind of race to that objective marker. It's really good to hold it, and they have to separate their forces in a unique way. But there's also nothing, well, besides the rules, but Warhammer 40K objectives are this kind of nice little circular pattern for lots of different reasons. One is for standardization, I'm sure, but one reason is also it's really easy to measure out 3 inches from a given point. You can kind of create a circle. But objectives don't necessarily have to be a circle. Let's say you made an objective that was, we're going to put it right in the middle, but let's say it was a square. Let's say you had an objective square. and it just sat in the middle of the table. And if you got within 6 inches of, well, if you didn't arrive within 6 inches of it, because that would create a circle, but if you were anywhere inside of kind of its control space, you could control that objective. And you can start thinking of really interesting things you could do if the objectives were not required to be a circle. So we can start creating objectives. We'll create another one that's at, like, let's say 22, 22. And we're going to make this one a square or a rectangle. And there we have another one right there. You can start making rectangle objectives. And maybe these work better in, let's say, a corner of the battlefield. Or there's also nothing stating that you can't, so I'm going to delete those. You can't have a radius that's really big. Let's put one at 3022. But let's say we want to create a King of the Hill style game. We want an objective right in the middle that's just really big. Okay, and there's this objective, and for the sake of needing more than one objective, we're going to add another one at 14, 22. So let's give it a really small area, something like that. So now the only way to score victory points in this game is to get units into the one big objective into the middle. That's essentially a nice, interesting King of the Hill mosh pit style game where you're trying to control a single zone, and it could create very dynamic and interesting games. Similarly, we could grab this, maybe we have one big deployment here, and you maybe put two little ones in the top corner, and you can have kind of asymmetrical gameplay. So in this kind of objective generation area, you're not only limited to creating circular objectives within 3 inches, you can create objectives that have rectangular shape or circular shape, as well as vary the size of those objectives. And that, I think, is just an interesting way to add some more dynamic play, not only to Warhammer 40K, but if you have a narrative game, let's say you have a narrative game where you're trying to take control of one enemy control room, or they're trying to take control of your control room with larger forces, then you can have one large objective in a corner of the map that one person's trying to protect. And just being able to vary some of the qualities of an objective really could add some dynamic gameplay to people who want to create their own custom maps and own custom scenarios and narrative campaigns. So now let's see how we actually get objectives into our actual game, a custom objective layout. Let's say we're creating a King of the Hill style game. So we have two objectives. They're there and there. Again, we need the second objective, but we've made it small so that we don't have to worry about it. And people can't really score points from it. Then we're going to, all we're going to do is King of the Hill. King of the Hill. We're going to change the name because we changed the idea. And we're going to save this layout. Now, whenever we save a layout, it will immediately appear in our layout, or like our community layouts. Anybody who they want can look at this, see that it's a kind of a 2 objective scenario layout situation. They can look at a deployment zone. We made the large castle yesterday, and this is a terrain, for example, where one player might have fortress walls in this area, and there's a little watch house. You can kind of see a summary of what that layout is, and you can subscribe to it by clicking the subscribe button. What that will do is now, whenever you go to a game, I'm going to use my example game right here. Whenever you go to a game, and as soon as kind of your map settings load, you have these generic 3 to begin with, but as it loads, you'll get access to all the other ones that you've subscribed to. And one of those is King of the Hill. And if you load up the King of the Hill objective layout, you'll see these 2 objectives. This one is a really big circle. And you can kind of see how units like this unit of, I guess this is Gene Sealers, are right on the border of it, and this unit is on the other side of it. But you can see how having a large objective may change gameplay and may provide more interesting and dynamic games. Now, just that's the basic outline of this new feature, is you can create these objective layouts and you can subscribe to them. But it's really interesting as I was thinking about this. Oops, sorry. We're going to create an objective layout. Let's see, create an objective layout that's going to be long bars is what I'm going to name it. And I'm going to have one objective at 22, let's put it at 1522. And it's going to be a rectangle, but it's going to be asymmetric in its shape. Its width is going to be 4, or let's make it 6, but its length is going to be 30. Okay. I'm going to add this objective. And now that's a really weird but also interesting objective space. Let's say you made another one on the other side at, just for the sake of arguments, we're going to put it at, X is going to be 45, I don't care. And Y is going to be 22. And we're going to make it a rectangle. And that is going to have a height of 30. Okay. And we're going to add this to our objective. And we have another one over here. And imagine playing a game where those are the two objectives and you have long table edge deployment. And you have this ability to kind of like tug of war on any given objective, because you can deploy units in it on the first turn, but so can your opponent. And you have to balance them across these two long objectives that cross deployment zones. That could be another interesting way to play with objectives. So I can save this layout. Anyone who wants now can subscribe to the long bars objective layout and have that as an option for when they're building or setting up a game. So thank you. I just wanted to share that with everyone, and hopefully you found that kind of feature integration helpful, especially for those alpha and beta testers who are building game maps or wanting more diversity. Thank you.